I'd like to open up the regular council meeting for Tuesday, October the 15th. It's currently 7 o'clock. The Village of Anmore would like to open our meeting by recognizing the many Indigenous peoples of our area, including the following First Nations with communities that are located in the region that we now know as Metro Vancouver: Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Coquitlam. Further, we would like to honor the important place in history occupied by the many territorial keepers of these lands and waters around us since time immemorial. I'll call the meeting to order. Approval of the agenda. Could I get someone to move the recommendation? Moved. Seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Public input. Public has come forward to matters raised here for council's consideration should be constructively focused on agenda items only. Anybody here for public input? No? Oh. If you could just state your name and address, and I don't think you need to push a button. I think it goes on automatically.
Where's the button?
There's no button.
Oh, there's no button. Oh, can you hear me then?
Yeah.
Good. All right. Trudy Schneider, 2318 Sunnyside Road.
If you could get a little closer to the microphone.
All right.
Thank you.
I just wanted to make a comment about one of the agenda items, particularly the 3 proposals by Icona. I was hoping that council will not be overawed by the projected amount of taxes that we would be getting each year from either of the 3 scenarios, because I think, as you probably have already figured out too, we could get that kind of money just from a simple other kind of development, probably RS1 or some other sort of thing like that. That didn't just seem like a lot to me. It seemed like the first one had a high developer profit and we got more money, and then the middle one and then the lower, so it was related to that. But I think our main concern is our village, and yes, the income to our village, but if we build 80 or 90 homes, we can get a lot of tax value out of that, probably as much as what they cited on the form, so I was hoping you will calculate that carefully. And the other thing was that I really didn't understand why, after we've had these very convincing arguments about why we need a village hub, and indeed we now have a very nice hub which we can use for things, and it's a gathering place for the village. We just really don't need, as a gift or a vanity contribution, whatever it's called, another building that we would have to maintain and look after and manage. So I hope that you would ask for something else, probably like money would be nice, instead of that, because we have this. We also have the elementary school, and I'm a big fan of community schools. Normally the school is not gated off the way ours is, and people can use it in the evening, of course, by arrangement. So I think we should stay with those 2 options and not go for a 3rd building. Thank you. That's me.
Thank you. Any other public input tonight on matters on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Could I get someone to approve or move the recommendation for the minutes of the regular council meeting held on October 1st? Seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Is there any business arising from those minutes? Seeing none. We'll move on to, there's no consent agenda. Legislative reports. 9A, fees and charges bylaw update, Anmore Community Hub facility rentals. Report dated October 11th, 2024 from our Chief Administrative Officer. Ms. Elrick.
Thank you. So this bylaw amendment is before council this evening in response to direction at the last meeting to update facility rentals to include a once per year no charge rental for Village of Anmore strata councils. So the bylaw amendment before you this evening would facilitate that change, and the recommendation would be that first, second, and third reading be given to Anmore Fees and Charges Bylaw Amendment, Bylaw number 701, 2024.
Someone to move that. Moved, seconded. Any discussion? See none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Just to give people who weren't here, basically some of the stratas in the village will be able to use this facility for their AGM meetings at a cost-free basis. We'll now move on to 9B, Anmore South Neighborhood Plan, Phase 2, a report dated October 11th from a Manager of Development Services attached. Mr. Boyd.
All right, well, I won't have my notes. I will through it with my paper copy. Okay, so I'm here tonight to present a report on Village of Anmore report to Council relating to bylaw number 686-2323, which is Anmore South OCP amendment. And I'm here today to talk about phase 2 of the terms of reference for the neighborhood plan. So I'll just give a little quick background. A little update on the neighborhood plan, terms of reference, reviewing the land use scenarios, and next steps, and then the recommended option for council to debate tonight. Okay, so a quick little background. So we're currently following the terms of reference which council ratified previously. We've gone through phase 1 of that terms of reference, which was a review and a lot of community engagement through phase 1, and we worked through 4 workshops with the public and 2 public engagement events to bring the public up to speed and to get input from the public on their thoughts on the OCP amendment process. Following on from that, we're moving into phase 2 currently. Phase 2 of the terms of reference for the neighborhood plan is about developing some more neighborhood plan options, scenarios currently, which have been based upon the community engagement feedback that we've received. And the proponent has gone away, worked with that information, and came up with some ideas of how to incorporate the public's input and not moving too far away from the OCP amendment as part of the first reading. So that's currently where we're at. And in order for us to get to phase 3, we need to get input from council as well to get to a preferred option. And when we talk about preferred option, it doesn't mean option 1, 2, or 3. It's talking about the pieces that you may like from one piece to the next piece to the next piece, and then figuring out how we mold those together into a final preferred option, okay? Okay. So the terms of reference for phase 2, where it's a development of a preliminary land use scenarios, the terms of reference said they had to develop at least 2. They've come back with 3 options currently. So there needs to be a review of the scenarios and council input on the components for each scenario. We need to continue with the community engagement. Another one here is a visual impact assessment. They haven't completed that yet, but they will come back soon with an impact assessment for council to review. And then following on from that, moving into phase 3. And phase 3, again, is where we take a lot of the components of the phase 2, mold it into one final report, and do a lot more analysis on that preferred options. And we'll get into what those reports might look at towards the end of the presentation. So all the land use scenarios have a lot of similarities. One of them is there's a lot of topographic consideration. So that's talking about the way the land works and how it has benches and how certain development needs to go in certain areas. Another piece is a biophysical, which is really about a lot of the watercourses, how to keep the watercourses and natural habitat intact. So we're making sure that they stay intact in each scenario.
Can I just want to check. Doug, can you hear us all right? Okay, good. We've had some issues with the microphone. I just want to make sure.
A little closer in?
Yeah.
Sure. Okay. Okay, and then each scenario or option has a diversity of housing options, and we'll go through the table with the different options associated with those. All of them have dedicated parkland and natural areas, including the network of trails. Each have opportunities for local shops, services, and opportunities for community facilities, and finally, active transportation. The active transportation is an important part of what we call traffic demand management, which is how we limit, or we try to limit in engineering terms, how much traffic will be generated by development. Okay, so option one, or foundation plan. This foundation plan currently is the closest one to what was included in the first presentation to council by the proponent for the first reading of the OCP. The option mostly closely reflects what the presented to council for the community in the phase one. Some members of the community supported this higher density option or higher in order to protect the maximum amount of natural area consistent with the OCP amendment application. Option one provides a local street connection from Crystal Creek Drive into Anmore South neighborhood. It has the highest density, resulting in the smallest residential development footprint, so that's how much of the naturalized area would be removed, which accommodates the largest natural conserved area and the largest areas for commercial space, neighborhood parks, amenities, and recreation facilities. So an important part, I don't know if my pointer will work here, if council can see it, the connection up to Crystal Creek. Option one is the only option that actually currently has the connection into Crystal Creek as one of the scenarios. Okay, so second was referred to as the balance plan. This option reflects input from some members of the community, indicating a preference for lower density and a shift to more ground-orientated townhomes, as well as single detached homes. And explore an alternative interface with Crystal Creek Drive. Option two removes connecting local street and provides a new single-family detached homes fronting Crystal Creek. So they would actually be directly onto Crystal Creek Road, which is currently loaded singly on that roadway. This option is the middle ground with a reduced density and larger development footprint compared to option one, which results in a less natural conservation area, less park amenity space, and smaller area for commercial space and recreational facilities than option one. This recreational facility could be a municipal facility funded through taxation, or a community club with an opt-in option for all Anmore residents, which would be run as a private business. And then the essential plan, quick breakdown of the essential plan. Option three provides the lowest density to reflect input from some members of the community requesting fewer homes overall with a higher density of ground-orientated housing. This level of density is the minimum density required to make servicing the development feasible. So when we talk about servicing it, that's more towards the Metro Vancouver, the regional connections to this development. Option three provides a third alternative for Crystal Creek Drive, a local cul-de-sac with fronting homes accessed from within Anmore South. It has the lowest percentage of natural conservation area, as well as a less neighborhood park space and fewer park amenities, less commercial space, and smaller recreational facilities that would be operated as a community club with an opt-in option for Anmore residents rather than a municipal facility funded through taxation. Okay, so this table, perhaps not the greatest here. It's included within the report. Kind of gives you a quick breakdown of option 1, 2, and 3, and I'll just walk through some of the highlights here. So option 1, which would be total homes created, which would be 3,500 homes. Option 2 would be 2,450 homes, and option 3 would be 1,990. So the general differentiation between the options 1 to 3 is that option 1 has a higher number of condominiums, apartments at 3,000. Option 2, that lowers down to 1,650. And then option 3 is 1,180. And the offset of the numbers is basically put into the townhomes and ground-orientated housing. Some other areas to consider here is the amount of parkland to be preserved, a naturalized framework. It's 61 acres in option 1, it's 55 in option 2, and 52 in option 3. And then again, we kind of refer to the commercial locations would be on Sunnyside and First for option 1, Sunnyside and First in option 2, and then a single commercial zone in option 3, which would be Sunnyside Road. The suspected active transportation and traffic, the numbers decrease from option 1 to option 3 as you get a lower population base, starting at 1,320 and dipping down to 780 in option 3. And then finally, the finance and servicing proponent has stated that there will be a net increase of $700,000 annually in option 1, $500,000 annually in option 2, and option 3, that would lower just below 400,000. All of them would still have connection to Metro Vancouver services. Okay, that's general comparison. Okay, so next steps. Obviously, I've just thrown a lot of information at Council tonight. There's a lot more within the terms of reference and within the application presented in the Council package tonight. So I'm sure Council have a lot of questions and concerns and want some more clarification on areas. So it'd be staff's recommendation that we move to a committee of the whole to have an in-depth conversation about any of the components that Council feel they'd like to have some more feedback, consideration on. So this is just a general outline. It could be a more or less of whatever Council wish to proceed with at Committee of the Whole. So generally, we'd be looking for feedback on the housing mix, the parks, the naturalized areas, the community amenities, commercial space, and the transportation network. Another piece is feedback on the initial visualizing images, which were in your package tonight. Any further revisions that Council would like to see throughout the options? Is this something that they haven't considered that Council would like to see considered? And continuing on with phase 2 community engagement as well, thinking about what we'd like more engagement on from the public in this current phase. And then ultimately, following the Committee of the Whole is to provide direction to the proponent regarding preferred land use elements of what Council would like to see to move into the third phase of the neighbourhood plan. Okay, so the recommendation tonight for council debate is
I'm going to hold you up on putting the recommendation forward because I've got some adjustments I'd like to make to that first, but I just want to open it up to council first, just to have a discussion, ask you any questions that you may have on what's in front of us right at this particular point. So, any questions from council? Or comments? Yeah. Councillor Trowbridge.
So the in-depth discussion you're proposing would be in a committee of the whole. How soon could we get to that?
I've got some timing scheduled
Okay,
up.
why don't you go ahead and then I'll ask questions.
Okay. Any other comments? Councillor Richardson.
Okay. I have lots of concerns with this, even going to committee of the whole. Specifically, the comparison chart is mostly about dollars to me. Like, you ask the question, what's good for Anmore? What does Anmore get out of this? And there's this big thing here about we get all this extra taxation dollars, but $700K on a $3 billion development, it's one big number minus another big number, and the odd that comes out positive is very, very low. Each of these scenarios takes policing in Anmore to over 5,000 people, which means we take everything on ourselves. That alone wipes out the $700,000 by about $700 to $1 million. So that doesn't count. It gets worse as you go down. And the other thing I don't like is the changes in parks are small, 5 acres here, 5 acres there. The density drops considerably, and this sort of argument where you're going to get less good land because we're going to be less dense makes no sense to me. I think there has to be an option where you go, okay, let's have some density and save 80% of it. And people look at me when I say that and I say, that's not a real number. Yes, it is. Cypress Village on the North Shore in West Van is getting 70% of the land in park in order to allow increased density. There's absolutely no reason that Anmore can't do the same thing. If you look at Portwood or Coronation Park, you can put 2,800 units in 10 acres. So this scattering it over 150 acres, if you're going to go this way, makes no sense at all. From an Anmore perspective, what we don't want is lots of infrastructure and low number of houses.
Councillor Richards, I'm just going to cut. these are great conversations that we can have at the committee of the whole. You're getting into sort of some of the details. What we're talking right now.
I understand, but we can
Excuse
have...
me, I've got the floor. What we're
Point of
talking
order, you're interrupting
point
me.
of order. I've got the floor right now. We're asking right now to be able to schedule a committee of the whole, and actually we're going through the process of how to get there. Your questions are good questions. Could we hold off to them until we have a committee of the whole
No,
meeting?
I think we should have committee of the whole when we have some real options. I think we should send them back, and they should come up with some neighborhood plans that actually make some sense for Anmore. And you can't have this discussion without having a rough idea what the finances are. The last committee of the whole, we went, well prepared, weeks of preparation. They answered no questions. It was a disaster. We got the same frickin' financial numbers as them, and they're using them as an argument. It's the most ridiculous thing I've seen in a long time. Do some real work. Like, you can draw fancy streets and lights and sidewalks and everything else, and it all costs nothing. That's completely false. I don't think this is ready to go to the committee of the whole. We need a neighborhood plan that makes sense for Anmore.
I think as Mr. Boyd pointed out, they've presented 3 proposals. We can certainly tweak any one of those proposals to make it whatever you're looking at. And I would stress to you very, very cautiously is to put all those things. So they're great questions. But I think the key thing is what we're trying to lay out here as a process in regards to going through what we agreed on, which was the community engagement process. So, and a committee of the whole, again, I've never been to any of the input in regards to online or any of the other meetings. I was at the one meeting, and that was all that I've ever been to. So I've never had my opportunity to put any of my input in. One of the big things that's a concern of mine that I would like to see is a connection to Crystal Creek. I don't think we should have to go through Port Moody to be able to connect Crystal Creek, and I think it's really important that that's part of any scenario that comes forward. So I'll move over to Councillor Trowbridge.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of getting into the meat in a committee of the whole, because that's a looser, freer conversation that we can have when we talk about 80% commitment of land and 70%. The way that's accomplished is through density on a small footprint, which means towers. And we've been told that over and over by our community, they do not want towers in Anmore. They want something that fits the community. So I can't read the minds of the developer, but I would say after being told no towers 1,000 times and they've come in with low buildings and no towers, it probably makes some sense. So rather than have some superfluous, meaningless debate here, I'd like to get it into a workshop. So I'm a big fan of what you're proposing.
Good. Any Councillor Wevering, sorry.
I'm okay moving forward with this. I mean, we could outright reject all proposals. We could discuss it in the committee and say, yeah, I don't really like any of these. Maybe what Councillor Richardson, I think I know what he's getting on about, sort of to what you're talking about. Maybe there's something in the middle, there's a compromise. For me, I'm not just looking at numbers. I'm looking at the future of this village. And really, if you look at any community when you're considering a development, you're not really considering it for the community necessarily. You're considering it for new people coming into your community. Any new condo project in Port Moody is going to have new people moving to Port Moody. So that's more the question is that what we want and to what capacity do we want that? I think what I like about this whole process is this is moving us towards Anmore's roots, where people came up to Anmore with not a lot of money. They settled here because the area was nice. Maybe they were into outdoor sports. Maybe they were into mountain biking or whatever. This is going to afford the opportunity, something like this, and I'm not saying any of these 3 scenarios, but it's going to afford young families, and young families don't live in 2,500 square feet anymore. They live possibly in 900 square feet, a condo. That's how they live. It's the truth. Sorry? Okay, well, okay. That's the reality of the Lower Mainland. So I'm definitely interested in moving forward in this, and I think a committee of the whole is where we do this.
Councillor Cryer.
Thank you. I was very pleased to see this on the agenda tonight, and I was also pleased to see a couple of different options of the land use, and they were spelled out very clearly. I'm not sure if they're perfect yet. I am interested in some of the questions that Councillor Richardson said, but I definitely want to move forward, and and get talking about it, get down into the nitty-gritty of it so we can really keep moving forward and look at the future of the village. Thank you.
Good. So I just, what I was proposing, or what I was going through a calendar and kind of, I realized that phase 2 consists very much of a committee of the whole meeting for council to finally put some input and give some input to the developer. And I think we all have some concerns, and we share similar concerns to what Councillor Richardson is starting to get into. Tonight is not the night to air those because there's nobody here to really listen to them. So the committee of the whole will give us an opportunity to get to that and to talk about the discussions about why can't a road go to Crystal Creek on all scenarios? What are the issues there? And be able to have that back and forth dialogue, as well as can we do it in a much more denser, what would that look like in regards to putting a height? I share similar comments to Councillor Trowbridge. I've heard very clearly people don't want to see the buildings above the trees, so I know there's some sort of a tree height thing as well. I'm still not even convinced, you know, really for me the big thing is, as Councillor Wevering said, future-proofing the village to the future in regards to servicing, water, and possibly sewer, because I know that at some point sewer is going to be needed here. So that's why I want to keep pursuing this thing, and it's all part of the approved community engagement process that we agreed. So with phase 2, part of that is a community of the whole meeting. So I'm going to propose, on your recommendation, that we add, so maybe if Ms. Schnell could add this, that we do October the 22nd, which is next Tuesday. We already have booked for a committee of the whole meeting. So I'm going to propose October 29th and possibly the 30th if we don't complete. So that will give the phase 2 completion by the end of October. I'd like to get part of phase 3 finished by the end of November. And the reason I say this is that December we only have one meeting. January we usually only have one meeting as well. What concerns me is I don't want to be holding any public hearings in either of those months because of the weather and because of, you know, council. This is important that all of council be there. So I'm proposing as well that once the committee of the whole meeting finishes either on the 29th or 30th, so we allocate both nights for that to make sure all conversations are had. And then the minutes for that will come to get approved on November the 19th. Is that our next, would that be our second meeting?
The next meeting would be November the 5th, but if Committee of the Whole was the 29th and 30th, it would not be achievable to get minutes on the November 5th agenda.
So what is the meeting after?
So the 5th and then the 19th would
The
be the
19th?
next regular meeting.
So the minutes could come forward on the 19th, and then if we could ask staff to allow an open house and then a final at the end of November, a committee of the whole with council to see what changes or anything have been made at that point in time. Is that possible? And then and then those two components are finished by December the 1st.
Through the chair, I think it would certainly be achievable to get the minutes from the Committee of the Whole meeting back for the 19th of November for
Yeah.
council to ratify. And then depending on the decisions made by Committee of the Whole and then ratified by council, that would also help inform next steps in terms of you reference an open house or what other types of engagement would be necessary.
I'm just worried about having the open house or committee of the whole meeting past the end of November. We're going to be running into some scheduling issues.
Right, so I'll make sure that Ms. Michelson will be at the October 29th Committee of the Whole, should council choose to go ahead with that, and she'll be able to speak to some of the next steps of activities of engagement at that time.
But there's going to have to be adequate notice provided for a village-wide open house. Is that correct? So we would have to make that call fairly quickly.
Right, through the chair, that wouldn't necessarily be the recommended option of the next engagement activity, so I would defer to Ms. Michelson on that, and we also wouldn't plan that until we received the direction to do so.
Okay, so could council tonight give direction that the open house is sometime scheduled at the end of November?
I think one of the things we'd like to discuss at Committee of the Whole is what we want to go back to the community on to debate. Because if, I'll just roll through a scenario. The Committee of the Whole, let's play a scenario you don't like any of the scenarios,
right,
and you want to redo everything. Well, it's very hard for us to go to the community and say, hey, make a comment on these 3 scenarios when council already said you're not really interested in any 3 scenarios. So it's kind of hard for staff to say, yes, we can be ready, because it really depends on what comes out of your committee of the whole discussion and what you'd like to get. It could just be, we want to know what the public think about these scenarios, send it out, and let's get some feedback on it, which, I don't put words in Ms. Mickelson's mouth. That could be achievable. But it's one of those things of, it's a debate topic that I would suggest through the committee of the whole of, what would you like to hear? What would you like to actually have engagement on for this second phase a little bit from the public? Because they've put a lot of engagement in so far on the first option that was on the table, like option 1, and a lot of back and forth's been had, a diverse opinion across the board on those things. And that's how they've got to these 3 scenarios so far. So it's kind of thinking about, okay, we want to go back to the community. What is it we want to ask the community about? Because we want to make sure we're doing meaningful engagement and not just in form.
Yeah, and I'm completely, that's why I was actually suggesting that we try and get it done before December, because again, everybody gets busy for December. I don't want, it's normally like we don't have public hearings in regards to in July and August type thing.
I just want to clarify, they're not public hearings. Public
Yeah.
hearings are something
Right.
legislative, that these would be community engagement events.
Right, like an open house, so to speak. And we also have the website, haveyoursayandmore.com, which we could be fully utilized in this, especially after the committee of the whole meetings, or meeting / possibly going into 2 nights and stuff like that. So, okay, so you're saying the committee of the whole could after that meeting, we could then establish the subsequent open houses to the public?
I think it'd be more appropriate once we know what it is council are looking for us to form that schedule for the community engagement. And staff would not be recommending an engagement event in December anyway.
So there is a possibility it could be done before December then?
Possibly.
Yeah, perfect, good. Okay, so if we could just add then the 2 dates of the committee of the whole, and then we'll, on that purpose, and we'll just call it in that. So can you read out the recommendation adding those 2 dates?
That the report entitled Anmore South Neighborhood Plan Phase 2, dated October 11, 2024, from the Manager of Development Services, be referred to a Committee of the Whole meeting on October 29th and 30th, 2024, for further discussion and consideration relating to the land use scenarios as outlined in ICONA's Phase 2 submission.
Good. Someone to move that? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? 29th and 30th. It's a Tuesday and possibly a Wednesday. Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Boyd.
Your worship.
Now move on to new business, council policy review. Ms. Elric.
Thank you. So typically, it's recommended that organizational policies be reviewed on some type of regular frequency. That has not been done here in Anmore in the past. And as a result, there are several policies that do need to be looked at in terms of their consistency with legislation, bylaws, their relevancy now, and to ensure that our policies are currently also aligned with Council's strategic plan. So now that we're almost halfway through this council term, staff is recommending that we initiate the process to undertake reviewing policies. So what that would look like is we would bring a framework and categories of function areas and departments to council to approve. Then we would identify and differentiate council policies versus administration policies. And then in groups, we would bring forward existing policies and recommendations for council to either update or reaffirm policies. And it would be anticipated that we would do that over a period of time, probably would take the better part of a year. If council wishes to go forward with that, the recommendation would be that staff report back to council with the policy framework for council/administrative categories and to conduct a review of council policies to reaffirm or consider amendments to current policies.
Can I get someone to move that recommendation? Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried unanimously. Long overdue, I'm going to say, compared to other municipalities. Thank you. Mayor's report, moving right along. Wow. Okay. First of all, hope everyone had a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Tomorrow night, Anmore Council will join councils from the other Tri-Cities for a joint Tri-City Council meeting to be held in Port Moody. Various topics will be brought up in regards to how we can work better as a team. I also wanted to ask Ms. Elrick, have we heard anything back from the Fraser Health representative that we asked to come and talk to council about some issues with septic tanks being drained into neighboring properties or anything?
I have been in contact with him, but we've been unable to schedule a date yet, so we're still working on that.
Okay. Just also wanted to comment that we will not be having another council meeting before Halloween, so Halloween is a go this year. Really looking forward to it, and be nice to be able to make hot chocolate and not have to run it through all the different rooms and keep blowing breakers and stuff. So we will be closing off Ravenswood Drive for the evening as well. And then one last thing, I'm not politically affiliated whatsoever, but somebody brought something to my attention that I just couldn't let go, so I had to. I'll just read it out. It's from a Lynn Ellen. The way I see it, or between Rick Lumack and Benita Zarrillo, the village got $2.5 million for the hub. I can tell you right now that neither of those two participated whatsoever in getting us $2.5 million towards the hub. It was actually Ron McKinnon, our MP, or not our MP, a local MP, and Selena Robinson. It was Rick Lumack and Benita Zarrillo had nothing to do with it. I actually have thought to myself, Rick Lumack, as a local MP, has never even reached out to me once during his term on council. So that statement online, again, I don't go online, but it was brought to my attention. I thought that had to be corrected. So that's all I have for my mayor's report. So, councilor's report.
Thank you. Not much, yes. It mentioned Halloween, mentioned all council tomorrow. Please vote. Election day is Saturday, but there are opportunities to pre-vote. I'm sure you got something in your mail. And I also want to comment on, every time I walk in the building, the fragrance of lavender as you walk through that front door is amazing. And I want to do a little shout out to the garden club. It's just lovely. I noticed it again this afternoon when I walked in. So other than that, lots of meetings coming up. And I hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving.
Any other? No? Okay, move on to the Chief Administrator's report.
Thank you. In addition to our Halloween event, of course, the election was mentioned, and we're pleased to be able to have this space to have offered up as a polling station. So we will have this room as a polling station for the October 19th provincial election. And then the next day on October 20th, the youth bingo will be held here. So please come out for that and look for details for that. I'm also very pleased to share with you this evening that Anmore has been awarded a grant through UBCM for $32,000 to update our community wildfire resiliency plan. Which is a very important step for the village to take in identifying ways that we can mitigate risk and take some fire smart initiatives. And like to thank Michelle for her hard work and level of detail that was required on this application. And we will be looking to engage with a consultant in the near future on that. So thank you.
I just have one correction. The First Anmore Scouts, it's not a bingo night. They're doing, this is on Saturday, November the 2nd. It's a music trivia pub night, is what I have. Julie sent me an email.
Right, so the October 20th is the youth bingo.
Oh, youth, oh, right, okay, sorry, okay. That's it. So the polling station will be here on Saturday. Good.
That's correct.
Good. Okay, we have information items, some minutes, public question period.
Please state your name and address.
It's Leslie Hannigan, 1065 Thompson Road.
Can you hear me? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Just one thing, when we were talking about the different scenarios that were given, and I think Councillor Trowbridge was saying you haven't heard anything about towers. Everybody's saying no towers, but when we were at one of the workshops, we had come up with, in the first room that we went to, which was that room kind of outside of this room, we had come up with an idea of putting some towers way at one end at the bottom there, and then having a lot of trees and, you know, really, and then having their own rec centers, kind of like, sort of like down the hill like Port Moody would have. And he kind of said, okay, and then we came into this room where we had the smaller workshops, and one of them was with the fellow Barry, might have been his name, but with the housing and that. And we were talking about this possibility of us, and he said, oh, that's actually, I hadn't heard of that, that's a pretty good idea. And, you know, it's like, I don't know why we have input if that's then not even being discussed with anybody. There wasn't a ton of public input at all, so it's not like it would have got lost in the papers, I wouldn't think. So, you know, that's just a bit discouraging. I think, Chris, you were in the room at the time when we were talking about that. So, you know, I don't know. And the other thing is...
Can I comment on that?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so that's good to hear, first of all. But towers were proposed years ago, and they were proposed on the south side of Sunnyside, down that steep slope. And there was some kind of a study done, and I don't remember by whom, that said they could go, correct me guys if I'm wrong here, I think they said they could go like 11 or 14 stories or something if they were far enough down the hill, and with trees on Sunnyside, you wouldn't even know they were there. Mm-hmm. So that did come up, but we received endless input on every kind of vehicle you can think of, social media, et cetera, fighting that whole concept of towers.
But that was that before this whole development was even a possibility, though? Like, it wasn't like you had the option of that or this at that time, if it was years ago, right?
It was a long time ago. I don't remember the dating, but it made a significant imprint. I can't speak for the others, but on me, that there was a loud movement against any kind of towers.
Right.
So that's where that comment came from.
I understand that. I just don't think that it's a relative comment now when we've got the alternatives as this. You know, like, it has to be an option as compared to others. Like, if that was a standalone thing, it would be.
Yeah, I'm not against any of it. I'm interested in having a
at that time. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I just wanted to make the point that while Councillor Richardson's talking about giving, like, it's over 50% of the land that's being dedicated to green space, taking that to 80% means you have to go vertical.
Right.
And as long as people understand that, and as long as the village is fine with that, I'm certainly not going to stand in the way of that thinking, but I wanted everyone to understand we've been hearing for ages, don't build anything tall.
Yeah. Correct. I think maybe it would be interesting then if we could look at some of the, you know, in the committee as a whole or something, would we be able to then have an option like this as well? Because this committee as a whole, the other question I had was, is this going to be another one where there is no public input and it's not recorded? And
Yeah, this will be, there'll be no public input. It'll give, because it's going to give council time. We haven't had a time to talk about this and ask questions yet.
Right. So, like, we never get, it has not seemed to me that we ever get public input as a whole. You know, it's always these little divided groups that we get pushed into little workshops and stuff. We get our say, but it doesn't work where one person can work off another person and somebody comes up with an idea and says, oh, that's a good idea, let's think of this. You know what I mean? Like, it's not conducive to everybody hearing each other's responses and having questions answered. And I was just wondering if we're going to have any kind of public input like that before this keeps going into phase 2, phase 3, phase 4.
Chris, do you want to answer?
Yeah, a couple of things. Just clarify that when we went through the public engagement event, there was a lot of diverse conversation regarding towers to single story. So there was all kinds of conversations, and there's a pretty comprehensive report on Have Your Say, Anmore Have Your Say. Said that wrong. Have Your Say,
Yeah, I know which one you mean.
Anmore.com. Sorry. Yeah, Have Your Say, Anmore.com. And there's don't quote me, I think there's 400 odd different kind of responses listed there of different questions and what have you. So again, I just want to point out there's a lot of diverse conversation that happened through those community engagement events. Second of all, I just want to reiterate that this is a proponent-led application. It's important to note that because it is the applicant's application and what they are wishing to create on that piece of land. It isn't a blank piece of paper for the public to say, this is what I want. It is
No, I understand that.
a proponent-led kind of piece, and it's up to council to decide on the merits of what is in front of them to decide if this is something they're willing to accept or not accept, and if they are going to accept, this is what they intend to see or have. So it isn't, I don't mean to be mean, it isn't a carte blanche, have whatever you want. It is a debate around the thing, but it ultimately is the applicant who has to say yay or nay to something of, I'll accept those terms or not accept those terms in some category here.
Yeah. And Leslie, again, I recall about the tower thing, as Councillor Trowbridge said, I've also heard from many people they want a greater diversity. They don't just want condos. They want townhouses. They want single family. So that is, it is, you know, it'll be a discussion that we have. I'm looking forward to it, to ask the developer in a very casual, what about doing towers here? What would that look like? What, you know, what would be the benefits? What would be the downfalls? At a committee of the whole meeting, you're certainly welcome to listen in. It's great. You know, it's very candid conversations.
To get a meeting with the public, with the developer, would we have to go straight to the developer and ask for that, or can you instigate that?
No, go ahead, Chris.
I wanted to add one comment I forgot to add to your comment about the public, you know, everyone hearing the comments. That will happen at a public hearing event. That is a requirement before we get to an OCP amendment. So there will be it'll be a case where you're allowed to go up to the microphone, have your say, everyone can hear your say. It isn't a debate per se, but it's a place where people can come have their comments and make sure the council will hear your comments before they make a vote on an OCP amendment. So that's kind of what I would say the biggest public forum that you would get probably in this process. And we do lean on our engagement professionals for how is the best way to engage with the public and get meaningful conversation with the public as well.
Good.
So
Good.
Okay,
just leave it at that.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Milo McGarry, 300 Canterwood Court. My question is around access and David Avenue in particular. Nobody seems to be talking about that. Ioko Road.
The majority of David Avenue is in Port Moody, so it's out of our jurisdiction.
Okay, so these 5,000 or 6,000 residents are all going to come access their homes via Ioko Road?
Or East Road, yeah.
Okay, I hope you know that that is insane. Okay?
Chris, do you want to?
These roads are not, they were never designed even to carry the traffic that is on them now. And the proponent has just brushed this aside. And they seem to be whetting everyone's appetite with, oh, we're going to bring in sewer. You know, this proposal, the number of homes, the access is frankly, it's nuts. And I really hope that this council pauses and thinks about the impact on surrounding communities with overloading roads. And quite frankly, there's no way that this corner, like there's a reason that Anmore is...
Mr. McGarry, I'm going to ask you, you have to get to a question.
My question is around access. And when I ask that question, there's a lot of blank stares like, what do you mean, Ioko Road? These roads are not designed to carry that amount of people. And you're never going to absorb that amount of product in this corner of the Lower Mainland, which is rural because it's hard to access. So you guys this is the wrong thing for Anmore and for the surrounding communities. So that's my question. What about access?
There'll be a whole, Chris, do you want to speak to this about road access?
Yeah, as part of phase 3, there will be a comprehensive engineering report done on traffic management and traffic loads on the roadways to provide you with the information on what will actually physically happen to the roadways if you put a certain amount of traffic on there and how it will impact not just Anmore, but the surrounding network as well.
Good. Any other questions in public question period? Two more people.
Hi, Sandy Richardson's Ravenswood Drive. I just have a question with regard to safety, and I'm specifically talking about when the population grows at Anmore Elementary School and what goes on in the back school ground. Are any of you aware what goes on in that back school ground? At night or 4:30 in the morning when I'm awoken by screaming children? Okay, we have a big problem, and I don't know who's supposed to resolve it, but as our population grows, that area is a kids' hangout. And I am tired of parents telling me kids will be kids, but they're not the ones that have to make the judgment calls like I do at 2 in the morning when girls are screaming their lungs out, and I don't know if they're getting assaulted or they're just yelling because they're stupid young girls and waking everyone up. I don't understand, and yet it
Sandy,
goes by.
if
So
you could
I
get to a
don't know how to do
question.
that.
Yeah.
Well,
I would
or have you,
suggest you would-
what are we going to do about safety as our population grows?
I would suggest you phone the police or the school district. They have a 24-hour security team.
Okay, well, I'll have to talk to this. Can I talk? You're on the safety committee? Because the problem is, I don't want to have to babysit people's children. It's not my job. If you're concerned about your children, you should know where they are. But also, as our population grows, there's still only limited hangout areas. So we do have a huge safety concern, and I think you guys need to think about that.
Well, I can tell you
placement.
that we get reports monthly from the RCMP about complaints, and that hasn't been really.
That's because I don't phone,
Please do, though. You should.
because I'm tired of phoning.
That'll get it to stop.
So because do we only have 2 policemen or 1?
We have a whole police force if need be.
No, but we have 1 dedicated between Pitt River and Anmore, isn't that correct?
Ms. Elroy?
Thank you, through the chair. I
Yeah.
think it depends on the incident, on who's on duty at the time, but we are supported by Coquitlam RCMP,
Right.
Rural Detachment, and there would be specific instances where the general RCMP would respond. So I would encourage you to report. There's online reporting tools that are linked through our website, as well as you can call emergency or non-emergency line, depending on the situation. And that's how
Okay.
how police find out about instances and issues within communities. If people don't
Okay.
report, then they certainly wouldn't know about it.
But I'm sure with the population growth, that problem will also grow. So, just so you're aware.
Any other questions?
Trudy Schneider, 2318 Sunnyside Road. I know the audio is a lot better, so I guess it's down to me. I think I understood you to say that we could listen in on the committee of the whole report meeting, and I just wondered, is it going to be in this room, or how will that be, and how do we?
Most likely it'll be in the boardroom, which has seating all around the perimeter.
Okay, so if there's a lot of people, though, would we move out, or?
Yep.
Yeah, okay. That's great. I just wanted to make sure, because I think that would be interesting.
Yep.
Okay, thanks.
Good, thank you. Okay, seeing no further, motion to adjourn. Moved, seconded, all those in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for coming out.